1, 2, 3, 4.
Good morning. Hi, everybody. This is Jewish Talk, coming to you live from Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC, at streaming live on the college station, the iHeart and the iTunes.com. This program is podcasted on Spreaker.com. And don't forget, you can join us in the studio right now by going to my Facebook, Live Rabbi Pearl. Also, good news, we're also rebroadcast Sunday evenings at 11 p.m. each week. So if you miss me during the day, I got you by the night. So there you go. It's Sunday morning, and today I'm going to speak about Tuesday. Right? Typical of a rabbi, right? It's Sunday, but you can talk about Tuesday. Because Tuesday is a seminal date in the Jewish history, and its lasting effect on us today. So what we talk about, of course, I want to say a big shout out and hello to everybody joining us, both on the radio and on Facebook. Hello to Jonathan Wolf, to Dr. Kilshevsky. I'm not sure where he is right now. He must be skiing somewhere in the Aspen area. And, of course, Jonathan Wolf comes from New Jersey. And good morning from Jean and Joanne. Wow, they must be both in town. Unbelievable. I know. They came. The turkey in New York is so much better than in the South. So what is this Tuesday? Tuesday on the Jewish calendar is Yud-Tes Kislev. Yud-Tes Kislev is actually the words 19th day of the Hebrew month of Kislev. Please be reminded that next Sunday evening, a week from today, in the evening, we'll be ushering the great holiday of Hanukkah. But we'll talk about it later. But what's the significance of this coming Tuesday that we are sharing with you today? Well, this 19th day of the Hebrew month of Kislev is celebrated as, guess what? Rosh Hashanah of Casitas, the new year for Hasidism. It was on this date, in the year 1798, I remember it clearly, that the founder of the Chabad Hasidim, Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, was freed from his imprisonment in Tsarist Russia. But more than a personal liberation, this became, in retrospect, a watershed event in the history of Hasidism, which heralded in a new era in the understanding and the revelation of what is known as the Pnimis HaTorah, the inner soul of the Torah. Just like you have a body and a soul, you have the body of the Torah, which is the Jewish law, and then you also have the soul, which can be found in Kabbalah, as explained by Hasidism. Now, the public dissemination of these teachings of Hasidism had actually begun 2 generations earlier. I'm sure you're all aware that the actual founder of the Hasidic movement was none other than the Baal Shem Tov, Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov, who lived from 1698 through 1760. And he revealed to his disciples that the gleanings from the mystical Torah, which had up until that time being the province of only select Kabbalists of each generation, the time had come now to reveal this. And this was continued through his own student, the Baal Shem Tov student, called the Maggid of Mizrich, who was also very much connected to this date, this Tuesday's date of the 19th day of Kislev, because on this day, 26 years before the first Chabad Rebbe was released from prison, as we'll soon explain why he got there to begin with, his teacher, the Maggid, returned his soul. He passed away. And before he passed away, he said to his student, the Alter Rebbe, this day is our Yom Tov, our festival day. So this coming Tuesday is a festival day, particularly in the Chabad Hasidic movement and in general, but its lasting impact really has left an imprint on the way we think in many ways. You see, the first Chabad Rebbe, as I said, he was a student of the Baal Shem Tov. He went further than his predecessors in bringing these teachings, these mystical teachings and Hasidic perspectives, to a much broader segment of the Jewish population of Eastern Europe. And most significantly, the Alter Rebbe, Rabbi Shneur Zalman, founded the Chabad approach, the Chabad movement. So you may hear about many different kinds of Hasidic movements, and as you well know, I hope that I am part of the Chabad approach, the Chabad Hasidism. What exactly is the Chabad approach within the world of Hasidism? It's a philosophy and a study and a system of study and meditation and character refinement that made these abstract concepts that found in Kabbalah become far more rationally comprehensible and most importantly, practical in our daily lives. So in its former years, the Hasidic movement was of strong anti-opposition from the establishment of that time. Even within the Hasidic community, a number of the Alter Rebbe, the Shneur Zalman's contemporaries, felt that he'd gone too far in popularizing and teaching these inner secrets of the Torah. Well, guess what happened? In the fall of 1798, Rabbi Shneur Zalman was arrested on charges that his teachings and activities threatened the imperial authority of the Tsar. And he was imprisoned in an island fortress in the Neva River in Petersburg. During his interrogations, he was compelled to present to the Tsar's ministers some of the basic tenets of Judaism and explain various points of Hasidic philosophy and practice. He was incarcerated for 53 days. And after that, he was exonerated from all those charges and he was released. And this Tuesday marks that date. So that's why I'm sharing it with you, to be aware of the greatness of what's going on the significance of this day. And I really want to share with everybody that Stephen Weitz has joined us, and Deborah Mehu, and Renee Jimenez. And it looks like Dr. Kilshevsky ran out of gas, so finds himself now in Merrick. I'll be right over with a container of gas to help you get out of Merrick. I want to say hello to Levana Cohen-Lichter. Thank you so much for coming and joining us today, and joining us on Wednesdays, our Lunch and Learn. Avi Gutleiser has joined us. David Lolonek has joined us. My friends, if you join us on Facebook, I have a chance to say hello, to welcome you, and to give you a wave, and I hope everybody's enjoying their Thanksgiving weekend. So, dear friends, back to now the significance of this Tuesday. His own incarceration in prison, again the first Chabad Rebbe, he saw this more than just simply. But let me just give you a quick background. One of the reasons why the Tsars and at that time arrested him. I mean, he was a rabbi doing his work. Why would he be arrested? Well, at that time, Russia was at war with the Ottoman Empire, and the Ottoman Empire had now a jurisdiction and over the governing of Palestine, over Israel at that time. Now, those who were looking to bring all kinds of false charges found out that the Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad Rebbe, was actually sending money, tzedakah money, to poor people in Israel at that time. Of course, those who were looking to make trouble decided to go to the government and say, listen, he's sending money to the army, to the armies of those who are against you, because he was sending money to Palestine, and Palestine was under the Ottoman Empire, and the Ottoman Empire was fighting with Russia. So they concocted a whole cholent that he was anti-Tsar. Of course, it turned out to be all false. He was just actually sending tzedakah, helping poor people. But he saw his own arrest more than just simply on these kinds of charges, but some sort of a heavenly indictment against, was the world ready to learn about these secrets of the Torah? And his release on this date, this is Tuesday, he saw this as a vindication that following the 19th day of Kislev, he was now redoubling his efforts to disseminate his teachings, which were based, of course, on the Baal Shem Tov and some of the primary principles of Hasidic way of life. And he was able now to continue to broaden and redouble his efforts. So therefore, the 19th day of Kislev marks this birth of Hasidism. The point is that at which it was allowed now, so to speak, it was now common for everyone that all Kabbalah, as explained through Hasidism, would now have the light of the day to grow and to develop into an integral part of Torah and Jewish life. One of the most, I would say, recognizable impacts of Hasidism to Jewish life is singing during prayer services. That comes from the Hasidic way of thinking, the emphasis of joy over just simply praying and saying words, and many other aspects. Now, I want to share with you, on the occasion of the 159th anniversary of the first Chabad Rebbe released from prison, This would go back to December the 12th, 1957. The Rebbe told an interesting story that happened while he was in prison. You see, as I indicated, he was being interrogated by the ministers to try to find out if this guy really was a criminal, an anti-Tsar. Of course, it was proven otherwise. So he was imprisoned, and he had to present all the ideas. So for 52 days, he was held in this Peter Paul fortress in Petersburg, which is today, or then became Leningrad, and then went back to Petersburg. So among the Rebbe's interrogators was a government minister who possessed a broad knowledge of the Bible and Jewish studies. On one occasion, he asked the Rebbe to explain the verse. We all remember the verse when God calls out to man and says to him, Ayeka. Right? Adam had eaten from the tree, and God calls out, Ayeka, where are you? And the minister, the government minister who's interrogating the first Chabad Rebbe, says, what kind of question is this? God asking Adam, where are you, Ayeka? Didn't God not know where Adam was? So the Alter Rebbe, Reb Shneur Zalman, presented an explanation which is a standard. We all know this from many commentaries, that when God said to Adam, where are you? It was like a conversational opener, like an icebreaker. God, of course, knew where Adam was, but he was like kind of getting the conversation going. And, of course, he had to open a conversation with Adam, who had did something wrong by eating from the tree. So the minister surprisingly said, I know what Rashi says, which is the classical commentator. I want to hear what you say. What is your understanding of this verse? So the Rebbe answers it, do you believe that the Torah is eternal? And he says, of course I do. That means you believe that every word applies to every individual. That means all the stories that we read in the Torah is not just simply a history book of what happened put into a book called the Bible. And we all know what Bible stands for, basic instructions before leaving earth. There's something eternal about it. There's an ongoing lesson. He says, yes, I believe that. Of course, the Alter Rebbe was very gratified to hear this. Here was a Tsar's minister affirming a principle which lies as the basis of the teaching of the Baal Shem Tov, which is that everything we see and hear we can learn from. So even it may be an ancient story in the Torah, but it has an eternal lesson to us. So the Alter Rebbe went on and said like this, when God asks Adam, where are you? He wasn't just asking Adam. He was asking every Adam, every one of us, each one of us, listening and watching and learning. We're all Adams. We'll all come back. In fact, I just saw online how scientifically they figured out that we all come from Adam and Eve. Can you imagine? Go online, you'll see that. There's an article over this weekend that talks about that. Like they're finally catching up with what we knew many years ago, thousands of years ago. God created Adam and Eve, and from there came all of human beings. So every one of us are an Adam. And when God asked Adam of old, he was really asking you and me. And what is God asking? Where are you? This is God's perpetual call to every one of us. A question that we all must ask ourselves on a daily basis. I try to do this every day and every moment, in a certain sense. What is that? We say to ourselves, where are you in the world? What have you accomplished? You've been allotted a certain number of days, hours, minutes, in which to fulfill your mission in life. Every one of us, right? All of us are alive for a mission. And that mission, from time to time, we have to remind ourselves and say to ourselves, Ayeka, where are you? I mean, what are you holding? You have lived so many years and so many days. And at this point, the first Chabad Rebbe, who has been interrogated, actually spelled out the exact age of this minister. He said to him, you are so and so and so, where are you? What have you achieved? This was a powerful answer, and the minister appreciated it, and obviously saw that the Rabbi Shneur Zalman was an honest person and a good leader and intelligent, and was far from being anything anti-Tsar at all. And so this Tuesday we come together, and we inspire ourselves on this ability and an appreciation of what Hasidic life is all about. And I'll tell you what Hasidic life is all about. I'll give you a story, a very important story that will help you appreciate it. You know, any synagogue, if you've been to a synagogue in recent times, we all know, right? Those who go on a regular basis have a seat, they know what to do. What happens when someone walks in on a Sabbath and is not dressed the way you are? Not dressed with his Sabbath finest clothes. And he's schlepping bags. How are you supposed to react to that? Do you react by saying, get out of here, you don't belong here? Did you pay your dues? Don't look down at him. Well, from the Baal Shem Tov, through the Alter Rebbe, who we celebrate this coming Tuesday, showed us to appreciate that every single one of us has a power, a holy spark inside of ourselves. And who's to say that you, with your Sabbath clothes on and shuckling and doing everything else, are any higher than this man who shows up looking like a homeless guy in the shul on the Sabbath? Who knows? And there's a very famous story about the Baal Shem Tov's father. Why was he blessed with such a son who became the Baal Shem Tov, the founding Hasidic master, from whom came all the Hasidic movements, in particular the Alter Rebbe of the Chabad movement? Is because on the Sabbath he welcomed into his house a guy who was carrying a package and, a a knapsack, and he made him feel like he was, $1 million. And all the holy guys, they said, who is this? Why are you giving him such honor? Not only did he honor him and put him on a nice seat at the table, he stayed with him, and on Saturday night when he's about to leave, this man said to him, I want you to know who I am. He said, I am really Elijah the prophet, and I came here to see how you would treat someone who is a stranger at your home or at your synagogue. And he says, because you were so kind to me, you're going to be blessed with a child, because he hadn't had a child for many years. You're going to be blessed with a child who will reveal all the hidden aspects of what Jewish life that we can find in Kabbalah and Casitas. And that's the birth of the Baal Shem Tov. So, my friends, that's a Hasidic way of looking things. You don't treat people by their clothes or who they are, or what you don't know. You never know. It could even be Elijah showing up in your synagogue. So with this in mind, I also want to say hello to all those who've joined us again on Dr. Kilshevsky is very, very honest today, and he tells me he doesn't need gas. I thought everybody needs gas. And of course, Jonathan Wolf, who's a Chabad Chassid in hiding, points out to us on Facebook that Untitled Kislev, this coming Tuesday, is very significant because it's just before Hanukkah. Just like Hanukkah celebrates the triumph of light over darkness, clearly a few days earlier, the Chabad Rebbe, who was able to overcome all these false accusations and continued his work for Hasidic insight and bringing out the soul of life, soul of a personality, was also part of that miracle, so to speak. I want to say hello to Ann Parker. I don't tell the station here, but people are actually listening in Delray Beach in Florida. Oh, I can feel the heat over here, and all the way from Florida here. Harvey Kipnis has now joined us. Amazing. Harvey, sei gesund. Gail Cole says, good morning. And again, we want to know very wonderful things that Abner Zarabi's also joined us. So please, if you care to join us on Facebook and I see your face, I'm going to say I wave you, and I'm saying hello to everybody out there. So another little story about the first Chabad Rebbe that we celebrate this coming Tuesday, his exoneration and release from prison, and of course his impact on us, the lessons that we can learn. When the Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad Rebbe, lived in a 2-story home. So he lived on the ground floor, and his son lived upstairs. So what happened one night when his son, it was called the Mittler Rebbe, Dovber, was deeply engrossed in his studies, his youngest child fell out of the cradle, cradle. So the father, who's right there, didn't hear anything. But Rabbi Shneir Zalman, who was also immersed in study in his room on the lower floor, hears the infant crying. So the Rebbe comes, lifts the infant from the floor, soothes his tears, puts him back in the cradle, and rocks him back to sleep. All the time, the father of the child remains oblivious. Later on, the father says to his son, Rav Dov Ber, he admonishes his son, he says, no matter how lofty your involvements, you must never fail to hear the cry of a child. And our Rebbe told the story to a gathering of community activists in 1962. And the Rebbe pointed out that this to me, the Rebbe said, characterizes the approach of the contribution of Chabad Lubavitch. With all the emphasis on self-refinement and one's own personal service of the Almighty God, we must always hear the cry of a child. That means you can be as holy roller in every single sense and doing it sincerely. We're not talking about, false presentation. You're a sincere guy. But you know what? If you hear the cry of a child, or not only a child, but only a child, even a child in terms of knowledge of Jewish life, never had a chance to know and learn, it really applies. There are so many Jewish children of all ages who have fallen out of the cradle of their heritage, and their souls cry out to us, and we must have the sensitivity to hear their cries and to respond. Yes, we must even interrupt our prayers and our studies and to do everything in our power to soothe those desperate souls and restore them to their cradle. There's a famous story again of the Alter Rebbe that on an eve of Yom Kippur, he had his talis on, he was in the synagogue. What greater, right? We all know how we feel on the night of Yom Kippur at Kol Nidre. Suddenly he stopped, took his talis off, and ran out. Turned out that he'd gone to the edge of the field, edge of the little village over there, and there was a lady who'd given birth, and there was nobody there to take care, to put on the fire, and to make sure everything was good. So the Alter Rebbe could have very easily sent one of his followers to do this, but no. He became aware of someone in need. He put aside his own spirituality because he heard the cry of this lady and the child, and he was there, right there on Yom Kippur. And I even chopped the wood and everything on the holiday itself, because of course it was to save this person's life. So, my dear friends, as comfortable as we all may be and all the good things are going well, if we come across a cause or a situation or an individual who's crying out to us, crying out to you for whatever, physical or spiritual or financial help, means that we have the ability to make a difference. And I want to share with you a story that I shared on Shabbos at our Kiddush yesterday. I want to say hello to Tom Schwartz, to Gail Corman, and Dr. Kilshavsky is mamish working overboard over here. And hello to Holly Karen. Thank you so much. Wow. Good to hear from you. Here's the story, my friends. The story goes back to a young Jewish doctor named Schreiber in 1934 in Bialystok, Poland. Schreiber is an educated but an assimilated Jew in name only. Right? Doesn't know too much. On the second day of Rosh Hashanah, after hundreds of Jews had immersed themselves in the mikveh of the main synagogue, the new anti-Semitic district attorney of Bialystok, accompanied by the city health inspector, 3 policemen, collected 2 samples from the water of the mikveh that had become dark and turbid. A day later, all the mikvehs in the cities were ordered closed, pending a hearing to be held 2 weeks later. Later, that same afternoon, the assistant mayor pays a visit to this Dr. Schreiber. And the assistant mayor says, "Listen, doctor, it's a matter of health." And he handed him a vial of water taken from the mikveh and asked him to examine it and to report back in 3 days. Of course, the purpose of the visit was clear to him. He, a respected member of the Jewish community, was to provide conclusive evidence that would lead to the mikvahs being closed down permanently because they're all schmutzig. It is a simple matter of health, Dr. Schreiber said, the assistant mayor. We want your confirmation. Needless to say, you'll be handsomely rewarded for your time. So the doctor sat at a long time at his desk. He took the water and examined the drop under a microscope. And guess what? It was full of bacteria. Obviously, today's mikvahs are absolutely impeccably clean. But I'm talking about in 1930s in Poland, the men's mikvah, on Rosh Hashanah after the biggest crowd were there. You talk about schmutzig, baby. So the story goes that Dr. Schreiber's thoughts, he goes for a walk, he's thinking to himself, he goes to the religious community, he looks at the children with their yarmulkes, he thinks about himself being an assimilated Jew, and he had become part of Polish society, and how he had somehow escaped all these anti-Semitic feelings, but he realized he was now facing such an act. So the following week, 2 elderly Jews came to see him. One was the chief rabbi Bialystok, the other was the president of the synagogue. They had learned about Schreiber being scheduled to testify, so they pleaded with him, and they said, but he argued, he said, listen, the water's full of bacteria. So the president said, no Jew has ever become sick from mikvah. That may be so, but nevertheless, the water poses a danger to the health of the community. So they said, Dr. Schreiber, science and logic are not everything. The history of the Jews is ample evidence of that. The rabbi, the president, took their leave. Again, he walks back and forth. Let me go fast. The next day, they come together. The witnesses come up on the stand, and they first have the janitor come up, and then he's a drunkard old man, and he'll do anything for whiskey. They finally call him up, and he says to him, Doctor, what is it all about? What do you say about this water? What are your findings, Doctor? And he said, the water is dirty, without hesitation. How dirty, Doctor? Very dirty. Would you say this water is hazardous to health? So the doctor says to him, the health of whom, sir? And everybody's silence, the judge says. Of course, humans, of course. Dr. Schreiber lifted the glass to his eyes as if to ponder the question. For humans, he says. He took one look at the water, and before everybody's eyes, he gulped down, he drank down this vial of water. Showing no signs of discomfort, he said to the judge, are there any more questions, sir? My friends, defying logic is what we're all about. What I love about this in the moment of truth, we all have little Schreibers inside of us. He represents the side of us. A part of us wants to be rational, intelligent, and reasonable. But at the end of the day, that's nothing wrong with that. But somehow at the end, there's something higher than that. And that is what it means to who we are. Like the rabbi told him, science and logic are not everything. The history of the Jews is ample evidence of that. And Schreiber proved that point. This is your host, Rabbi Pearl. Thank you for joining us. Looking forward to speaking to you next week on the eve of Hanukkah. Sei gesund and stay well.